Tonight on Global National, another terror suspect is arrested in Canada. Troubling allegations he wanted to attack a Jewish center in Brooklyn.
Khan wanted to conduct his attack on or around the one-year anniversary of the October 7 Hamas attack on Israel.
How was he allowed into Canada, and why did it take the FBI to alert Canadian authorities? A troubled spacecraft returns.
Separation confirmed. Starliner is now backing away from station and starting its return to Earth.
But what about the two astronauts it's leaving stranded in space? And long overdue.
I want to acknowledge and apologize for the far-reaching impacts of street checks.
A much-awaited apology to a community wronged by police heavy-handedness.
Global National, reporting tonight. Nitu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We're learning more details tonight about an alleged terror plot in New York City that was thwarted on Canadian soil this week. Police in Quebec arrested a 20-year-old Pakistani citizen on Wednesday, apparently as he was about to cross into the United States. They allege the man was planning a mass shooting at a Jewish center in Brooklyn on behalf of the so-called Islamic State. Here in Canada, Mounties insist the suspect was not an immediate threat prior to his arrest. But the case is once again raising serious questions about how an alleged ISIS sympathizer ended up in Canada. Mackenzie Gray begins our coverage tonight.
In this sleepy Quebec border town, the FBI and RCMP foiled an alleged ISIS-inspired terrorism plot that soon could have turned deadly.
We asked questions. Was it dope? Was it cigarette? What?
Didn't expect it to be terrorism, I guess.
No.
Early last week, 20-year-old Mohammed Khan, a Pakistani national who was living in Toronto, was arrested in Ormstown, Quebec, 12 kilometers from the Vermont border, where the FBI alleged he was set to meet up with a human smuggler to help him get into the U.S. The alleged destination? New York City, where the FBI say Khan was planning to attack Jewish people in what he posted online would be the largest attack in U.S. soil since 9/11.
We discovered Khan used encrypted messaging apps in planning a mass shooting attack at a Jewish site in New York City. Khan wanted to conduct his attack on or around the one-year anniversary of the October 7 Hamas attack on Israel.
Court documents allege Khan picked New York City because of its large Jewish population. We're going to NYC to slaughter them, Khan allegedly said, planning to use AR-style assault rifles and a hunting knife so he could, quote, slit their throats.
The war in Gaza, what Israel's doing, what Hamas is doing, is giving rise to a lot of anger and a lot of frustration, and ISIS is taking advantage of that.
Another example of that, the recent arrests in Toronto of Ahmed and Mustafa El-Didi on similar terrorism charges. The RCMP alleging they were close to carrying out an ISIS-inspired attack, and Mohammed Khan was allegedly paying attention. They foiled an ISIS attack here in Toronto, court documents allege Khan stated. Police also say Khan referenced reporting from Global News that Ahmed El-Didi had allegedly appeared in a video released by ISIS showing a man dismembering a prisoner with a sword that took place overseas. After that, El-Didi was able to come to Canada and obtain Canadian citizenship. Immigration Minister Mark Miller's office would not say how Khan, a Pakistani national, came to Canada, citing privacy reasons, but his office did say they're reviewing the case.
Depending on the status of this individual, it clearly is something that may impinge upon our immigration system yet again.
In both the Khan and El-Didi cases, it was foreign intelligence agencies that alerted the RCMP of the threat, Nithu, underscoring Canada's close relationships with allies, but also a potential weakness in not being able to spot alleged homegrown terrorism.
All right, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa tonight. Thanks, Mackenzie. And joining me now is Global News investigative journalist Stuart Bell, who's also been looking into this story. So, Stuart, what more do we know about this threat and how close it was to actually being carried out?
Well, on the one hand, this is somebody who seems to have bought into ISIS ideology. He made plans to, in his words, slaughter large numbers of Jews in New York City, and he made his way to the border to do that. But on the other hand, it seems like the FBI and the RCMP have been on to this guy since last November. They had him under close surveillance. They had undercover operators talking to him, and they were able to make the arrest before he harmed anybody.
And this is now the second alleged ISIS-inspired terror threat to be foiled in Canada in recent months. Given what we know so far, how could this impact Canada's reputation, especially around our border policies?
Well, just over a month ago, we had two arrests over an alleged ISIS plot in Toronto. And in that case, there were some very serious questions about security screening that were raised. How were these people able to enter Canada and get through all of the various checks and balances that are supposed to take place? And it looks like this could be another case where that is an issue. And that's not a good look for Canada, particularly when people are trying to use Canada as a kind of a springboard for attacking our closest ally.
That is Global News investigative journalist Stuart Bell. Thanks for that, Stuart.
Thank you.
A 21-year-old Niagara Falls man was arrested on Thursday after explosive devices were found in his home. Niagara Regional Police say they were alerted to the possible presence of a suspicious device in the home on Wednesday. A search is said to have found multiple devices of concerning nature, which sparked the evacuation of nearby homes. Taha Slayman is facing charges including the unlawful possession of explosives. Tributes are pouring in following the sudden death on Friday of Grand Chief Kathy Merrick of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs.
You could feel that, her heart and her love for each and every one of us, that we have to try and make a different way for First Nations children.
Kathy was chosen by the Chiefs, but she served all of us as Manitobans, because to her final moments she fought for First Nations people. And when First Nations people will be better off, all Manitobans will be better off.
One by one, Indigenous leaders honored Grand Chief Merrick today as her chair sat empty in front of them. She was 62 years old and was known as a tireless advocate for Indigenous rights who championed reform of the province's child welfare system, in which roughly 90% of children in care are Indigenous. The Paris Paralympics wrap up on Sunday, and Team Canada is already having an amazing final weekend of competition. Ontario's Austin Smink got Canada off to a winning start, winning gold in the men's 800-meter wheelchair sprint. And he wasn't the only Canadian to stand atop the podium today. New Brunswick's Danielle Doris grabbed gold in the women's 50-meter butterfly. Saskatchewan's Shelby Newkirk also swam her way to a medal, taking bronze in the women's 100-meter backstroke. Ontario's Brianna Hennessy won silver in the women's 200-meter canoe sprint. And finally, the women's sitting volleyball team won their bronze medal match. It puts Canada at 28 medals, including 10 golds at the Paris Paralympics. Both those numbers surpass Canada's totals from the Tokyo Games. In France, there is political uproar tonight after President Emmanuel Macron appointed the country's new prime minister a conservative. Thousands marched in Paris and other French cities, angry over the appointment of center-right politician Michel Barnier. Barnier was appointed despite a coalition of left-wing parties holding the most seats in the French parliament. But Macron is apparently refusing to appoint a prime minister from the alliance on the left. This follows July's snap election that was supposed to be all about stemming support for the far right. Boeing Starliner has returned to Earth without the astronauts it carried into space.
Separation confirmed. Starliner is now backing away from station and starting its return to Earth.
The spacecraft undocked from the International Space Station last night before making a 6-hour trek back down to Earth, landing in New Mexico. Safety concerns led NASA to have its 2 test pilots, Sonny Williams and Butch Wilmore, stay behind.
All of us feel happy about the successful landing, but then there's a piece of us, all of us, that we wish it would have been the way we had planned it. We had planned to have the mission land with Butch and Sonny on board.
Wilmore and Williams are set to make their return to Earth in late February aboard a SpaceX shuttle some 8 months after they were originally supposed to fly back. With less than 2 months until the U.S. election and just days before their first debate, Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are wrapping up their campaigns to take the Oval Office. In recent days, Trump has been busy trying to shore up support in battleground states. This is especially as Harris appears to be gaining more bipartisan endorsements, including from some of the most prominent Republicans. Reggie Cecchini reports.
Having already bridged a gap within her own party,
Kamala Harris is still finding more friends across the aisle.
I have thought deeply about this.
After former Representative Liz Cheney broke with her party, so too did her father, former Vice President Dick Cheney, who in a stinging statement said of Trump, he can never be trusted with power again. A signal to anti-Trump conservatives that it's okay to come out of the shadows.
Increasingly, they give each other permission. If it's okay for the Cheneys to vote against Trump, then it's probably okay for me to vote against Trump.
We have more in common than what separates us.
The race is still in the margins, and siphoning support from the other is a necessary action. A looming debate could be what's needed to further sway the few remaining undecided voters. While Harris has spent days preparing,
she's got a lot to learn. She's locked herself in a room.
Trump is practicing his skills in the public forum.
They're radical left Marxists, and that's what she is.
He's been critical of his opponent's strategy and history, but also her economic agenda, which will take center stage at the debate, along with more difficult topics, including yet another American school shooting.
I, for one, am sick and tired of hearing about thoughts and prayers rather than actually doing something about it.
I don't like that this is a fact of life.
Republicans typically balk at gun reforms, giving Harris a chance to highlight the Biden administration's achievements, including the first gun safety legislation in decades.
This is one more way to say to suburban moms, suburban families, Harrison Walls care about things that matter to you.
Now, expectations for Tuesday's debate are tempered by the fact both campaigns are bound by the rules from the initial meetup, including muted microphones when candidates aren't speaking. That could take away from the direct confrontation between candidates that voters may have been looking for. Neetu?
All right, Reggie Cecchini in Washington tonight. Thanks, Reggie. Desert precipitation affecting coastal storms. Coming up, the unexpected link between the Sahara's shifting rains and a rare lull in Atlantic hurricanes. At least 4 people are reported dead tonight as Typhoon Yagi, described as one of the fiercest storms to hit Southeast Asia over the past decade, slammed into northern Vietnam. With wind speeds topping 150 kilometers per hour, it forced tour operators in Vietnam's famed Ha Long Bay to cancel hundreds of cruises. Yagi crossed over into Vietnam after wreaking havoc on the southern Chinese island of Hainan, leaving 3 dead and nearly 100 injured. There is more evidence our planet is heating up dangerously, and it's causing severe changes to weather. The latest data from the European Union's Climate Research Agency shows summer 2024 beat out the previous record in 2022. The red bars on the right mean hotter than normal. The data points to this year being the hottest ever recorded by humans, which experts say increases pressure on everyone to rapidly reduce planet warming pollution. This is the time of year meteorologists are on the lookout for hurricanes forming over the Atlantic Ocean. As we've reported, those hurricanes are increasingly supersized because of warmer ocean waters caused by climate change. This year, though, things have been exceptionally quiet with no major hurricanes since August 12th, which is highly unusual. As Eric Sorensen reports, the lack of hurricanes could be yet another signal our planet's climate systems are growing out of sync.
This is the Sahara Desert we know best, sandy and dry, where less than 2 centimeters of rain falls annually. But satellite images show rain clouds swirling over the western Sahara, and radar forecasts predicting heavy rains in parts of Mauritania and Mali that are normally bone dry. Heavy rains in the usually parched regions of North Africa can turn catastrophic. Last month in Sudan, torrential rain caused a dam to burst, destroying villages, killing many and displacing tens of thousands of people. A similar catastrophe happened in Libya last year from uncommonly heavy rains. The World Meteorological Organization reported this week that over the past 60 years, Africa has observed a warming trend that has become more rapid than the global average, resulting last year in deadly heat waves, heavy rains, floods, tropical cyclones, and prolonged droughts. What happens in Africa can affect the weather on the other side of the ocean. The Sahara Desert normally is known for dust clouds that can travel across the Atlantic to South America, actually providing nutrients in the Amazon. But the rain that normally makes tropical Africa green has shifted north over parts of the western Sahara. One effect is to disrupt weather in the eastern Atlantic, where the formation of hurricanes often begin their journey to the Caribbean and North America. The result this summer, fewer hurricanes. There have been only 5 named storms so far this year, and the last was August the 12th. No big Atlantic storms in more than 3 weeks, which is exceedingly rare at this time of year. In July, Hurricane Beryl was the earliest forming Category 5 storm ever recorded. It was supercharged by ocean waters that have been the warmest on record the last 2 summers. There was every expectation this would be a summer of intense Atlantic storms, but it's gone quiet, in part because of the shifting rain patterns in West Africa.
These African waves, when they're up to the north in the Saharan desert, it's more of a hostile environment. So they come out into the Atlantic and they weaken right away instead of developing into those hurricanes.
September and October are often the most active months for hurricanes. For millions living on North America's east coast, forecasters are watching the perplexing lull in Atlantic storms, and this year in particular, keeping an eye on the gathering clouds over the Sahara Desert. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
The RCMP's apology to African Nova Scotians ahead, the actions they say would mark the real measure of progress. For decades, people of color in this country have been made to feel like second-class citizens in their interactions with police. Among the most egregious actions are police street checks, when authorities suspect a person of wrongdoing, often based solely on the color of their skin. Today in Nova Scotia, there was a long-awaited apology from the top ranks of the police force. Ella MacDonald reports.
The room was packed at the North Preston Community Centre Saturday as the RCMP delivered an apology to African Nova Scotians for the historic use of street checks.
We want the same thing the South End or West End gets. The same energy that is given to white communities, it has to be given to black communities.
According to a 2019 report by Dr. Scott Wortley, people of African descent were 6 times more likely to be street checked in the Halifax region.
I am deeply sorry for the harm caused by our use of street checks and other interactions with the Nova Scotia RCMP that have had a negative impact on you and your community.
For Youth Poet Laureate Asia Sparks, the apology is decades overdue.
We have a long way to go, and this apology will mean nothing without the actions that follow.
In her short 19 years of life, she says she's had plenty of unpleasant experiences with police.
When will we not have to repeat the same things our ancestors have, the ones before us? I'm really just saying the same things everyone else has already said. Why do I have to?
As part of the official apology, the RCMP introduced an action plan, focusing on 5 areas of improvement when it comes to relations between officers and the community. This includes educating RCMP employees on history and anti-Black racism, keeping up RCMP engagement within communities, increasing the number of racialized employees within the RCMP, collecting race-based data, and keeping the public updated on the plan's progress. For longtime community member Alistair Johnson, the action plan offers a glimmer of hope.
We can't undo the past, but if the RCMP can go forward into the future, knowing the past, then maybe we may have a better relationship.
As expressed by many members of the community, Saturday's apology means nothing without subsequent action. The apology was a step in the right direction when it comes to healing wounds, but only time will tell the impact. Ella MacDonald, Global News, North Preston, Nova Scotia.
Next, how a UK rover's breakthrough tech is revolutionizing Mars exploration. For centuries, humans have wondered about the prospect of life on Mars. To answer that question, you need rovers, orbiters, and landers that can scour the red planet. Mars, of course, isn't exactly close, and the time delay in communicating with those machines from here on planet Earth is a big challenge. But as Redmond Shannon reports, autonomous technology means machines can now map the Martian landscape on their own.
No, this is not Mars. This is an old quarry just north of London. Currently the workplace of Cody, This British rover had been destined for a mission to Mars to help collect Martian soil and one day fire it back to Earth. But instead, NASA's Perseverance rover will do the digging itself with the help of drones that will also take samples. However, one big issue with navigating rovers through the rocky red landscape is the painful communications delay.
But if I can't figure out a way to make contact with NASA, none of this matters anyway.
As highlighted in Ridley Scott's The Martian.
32-minute round-trip communications time. This won't exactly be an Algonquin roundtable of snappy repartee.
That's where Cody's new skill could yet come in handy. Once it's given a precise location, it can get there by itself, take a sample and return to base. No human needed.
It's got these stereo cameras on board, basically a 3D map of the terrain in front of it, and it knows its capabilities, so it can pick a path through those obstacles.
The designers claim it's the first time it's been done this accurately. European Space Agency engineers say this technology is key to future missions to Mars and the Moon.
Now we can say the task of end-to-end navigation and sample fetching pickup, now we have mastered it and achieved it. All of what we are developing, we are certain is going to find its way into other flight missions.
Airbus is also testing this six-wheeler. It is traversing this quarry to learn how to make rovers faster and more agile, ahead of the ExoMars mission in 4 years' time, a European program searching for evidence of life on Mars. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Fascinating. That is Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Your Canada is the Black Tusk stratovolcano in Garibaldi Provincial Park, British Columbia. Thanks so much for watching and hope you'll join us again tomorrow. Have a great night.